Welcome to Entanglement Radio, transcendent talk for the conscious mind. Join us for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science, new thought, and conscious healing. Explore the potential and infinite possibilities of what it means to be human with some of the best guests in radio. At Entanglement Radio, it is all connected. Now, here is your host, Angela Levesque, on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Hey, and welcome. You're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on OMTimes Radio. I'm coming to you live today from the beautiful foothills of the Rocky Mountains here in Boise, Idaho. I have a very inspiring show for you today. We are talking about spiritual awakening, and we're going to hear some personal stories of my guest, Keidi Keating, about her awakening, as well as some of the wisdom that she has gathered as she put together several books in her Light series. And she has talked to some of the world's leaders in spirituality and consciousness, and we're going to find out a little bit about what they had to say and talk about what we have to do to sort of prepare and the practices that will help us on our spiritual path. So we will do that. As I said, be prepared for a very inspiring conversation. Coming up next week, we have Patty Fivette, and we are going to be talking about the making of a modern mystic. And we're going to talk about tools such as automatic writing and journaling and how we can use those to help us connect even deeper to spirit. And she has some pretty interesting experiences to share herself. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the last 2 weeks, I am going to France. So I am going to leave you in very capable hands. And we are going to play some of my favorite shows that I've done thus far. And then I will be back the first week in April with new shows for as far as the eye can see. So I'm really, really excited. I think that this show has been picking up speed. And I also encourage you that if you are listening to my show and you haven't checked out any of the other amazing hosts on the station, that you go, we have them kind of organized based on the chakra system. And so if you're needing a little health and wellness, or if you're looking for some more conscious living, you can go and you can look those up based on what it is you need in your life. How cool is that? So if you need to get a hold of me at any time during the week, you can email me at angela@hestiahealth.com. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Hestia Health, as well as Entanglement Radio. And many of you have been joining me in the past several weeks, which I just love, and I just huge gratitude for that. And yes, please do check out. I have some new services and everything on my website, and a new online school coming soon. So you can check that all out at hestiahealth.com. So today we are talking with Keidi Keating about her books, the series From the Light. Her first book is The Light, a book of wisdom, and she also has Experiences from the Light. And I know that my personal experience, I have always been sort of an intuitive person. Even as a kid, I kind of had a tendency towards intuition. And it wasn't really, though, until I started learning Reiki that all of a sudden the veil really started to lift. And I started to understand the world energetically. And it was then that I had all of these really cool spiritual experiences. And then it was, and I don't know if it was coincidental or not, but shortly after December 2012, I got to say, things kind of really started to get interesting, and a lot of different beings and angels and other benevolent beings from multiple different planes started showing up and really connecting with me. And so that was pretty interesting. So we are talking about those experiences that we can have as we awaken. And as I said, learning some of the wisdom that the world's greatest spiritual teachers have, as they contributed to Keidi's first book, The Light, a book of wisdom. So with that, let me introduce Keidi Keating, an experienced a sudden spiritual awakening at the age of 30 after a series of transformational healing sessions. One night, an orb of glowing white light appeared in her bedroom and instructed her to put together a book of light to assist and support others on their journeys to enlightenment. So following divine guidance, which showed up as white butterflies, auspicious number combinations and intense dreams, she gathered some of the planet's greatest spiritual teachers and authors to contribute chapters. 3 years later, after a lot of hard work and synchronistic magic, the light spilled its rays to readers, attracting international publishing offers almost immediately. Keidi now speaks at spiritual-related events, and she continues to write books that empower people to awaken their divine inner light. So with that, I feel very honored and blessed to welcome Keidi Keating to the program. Hello, how you doing?
Hi, Angela. I'm great, thank you. I'm in grey UK at the moment, and it is actually grey today. So I'm hoping to bring a little more light, to the world right now through this
Well,
radio show and to the UK.
I really think that a lot of people could experience some light, whether, the people out east here in the United States are having incredibly a hard winter. And in fact, here in Boise, it is quite gray. But I think that there's a lot of things going on around the world that we could shed some light on, and that's why I
Yes,
think conversations like the one that we're going to have today are so important, because as each one of us goes and sheds and shines our own inner light, we create more light in the world. Tell us, is that kind of in alignment why you wanted to write these series of books?
yeah, actually, for me, it happened where I was going through a very profound spell of depression before I actually began to see the light. So I basically went from the darkest depths, and then the light came from there, and that's what happens with a lot of people. So, I've been told now that my purpose is to help people reawaken their divine inner light, to help them shine at everything they do and attract the abundance and love and joy that are all part of our natural birthright.
I love it. So before you, in your bio here, it says that you had a series of spiritual awakening after healing sessions when you were 30. Were you similar to my story, that even before you kind of had those experiences, you always knew that there was something beyond the veil?
Yeah, most definitely. When I was a little girl, I would lie in bed and I would look at all the colors around the room. And this was with the lights off, and I would see orbs of color floating around. And I never knew what they were. Obviously, as a kid, you just kind of stare at these things. And I never even knew if anyone else could see them or anything like that. And that was just one thing. But I also just really was quite empathetic. Like I could pick up other people's feelings a lot of the time. And again, I didn't understand that as a child either. I didn't understand why, when mummy got sad, I would get sad, and I would really just feel what they were feeling.
bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business.
The Conscious Parenting Radio Show provides inspiration and resources for loving, empowering, and respecting your children and yourself. Join me, Timothy, every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time as we consciously explore proven ways of living together in happiness, health, and harmony.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
We are back, and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on IOM.FM. My guest today, if you're just joining us, is Keidi Keating, and she is the author of these Light series of books. Her first book, The Light, a book of wisdom, and also Experiences from the Light. And we're talking about spiritual awakening. So in the beginning here, it talks a little bit about your spiritual experiences that kind of transformed you. I would like to give you the opportunity to share a little bit more in depth with us. What exactly happened?
Well, like I said before, I was going through a spell of profound depression because I didn't know what my purpose was in this lifetime. And it was really important to me to know that. So I just kept going deeper and deeper into this depression until the point where after about 9 months, I surrendered completely to my situation. It was at the time I was on the sofa and I was crying my eyes out, and I had been for most of the day. But I realized that in that moment, I couldn't actually feel any lower than that, and that I just had to surrender. It was just a very natural thing for me to do. So I asked God to give me a sign. And that was the first time throughout that whole 9 months that I had asked Spirit for anything. So after that happened, it was like this profound kind of moment where I just realized it was just a sense of complete freedom. And after 24 hours of asking, I actually received a sign. And it was a advert for a Mind, Body, Spirit festival that I saw in a magazine. And I realized, again, I had this like intuitive knowing I had to go to that festival. And after going there, I met a man who was a healer. He called himself a cellular healer, and it heals energies which have been trapped in the body's cells for years on end, sometimes even from past lives, stagnant energies. And he explained a little bit about what he did, and really I still didn't know what it really was, but I was curious enough to go there and have these sessions with him. And he actually offered me the sessions for free. He must have known that I really needed them. And so that was really nice of him as well. And after the first session, or during the first session I should say, my whole body was absolutely convulsing for about 2 hours, and it was completely beyond my control. I could not stop the convulsing from happening, no matter how hard I tried with my mind. It was like, no, this is what you've got to do. And it was very clear that I was releasing a lot of negativity from my lifetime or past lives, or goodness knows where it was coming from. But there was definitely a lot of trapped energies there. And it was the very next, well, actually it was that day. So I had the healing session at about midday. And as soon as I got home, I was absolutely exhausted. So I went straight to bed and just decided to have like a nap. And as I woke up from that nap, I had my first spiritual experience in that I heard somebody whisper my name in my ear very loudly, and it kind of jolted me. And I wasn't asleep at the time, I'd already been awake, but it jolted me up out of bed, and I sat upright and I started looking around to see who had said it to me. But there was nobody in the room. I was completely just me. I was alone. And I had heard that sometimes angels do that to get your attention. And so I put it down to that. And I didn't know any more at the time. Like, I didn't understand about asking to see who was there, or, connecting with that voice. I just let it go. But that was really just the beginning, because after that, I started to have lots and lots of spiritual experiences where I would, I saw ghosts. I saw the orb of light that appeared in my bedroom one night. I actually had a couple of alien related experiences as well, and left my body various times, and actually did, travel into different realms and dimensions. And a lot of things like that were happening. I mean, there were just too many to tell you them all right now. There was another one where there was a lot of like strange looking words, like a different language, and it was all coming into me, like I was being given some information which I couldn't physically read, but it obviously meant something to me on some level. A code as well. There was another one, a code of light almost, was sort of downloaded into me. So there was lots and lots of things, and it just blew me away. It really started opening my mind, and I then started to become a lot more psychic and intuitive than I ever had before.
So it's interesting, because some people are going to hear this story and they're going to relate, and then some people, and I found this myself when I've shared some of my experiences, is people will say, why doesn't that happen to me? I want it to happen to me. And they say, and they'll be like, I'm open. Why can't I have that experience too? Do you have any insight on that?
All I can think is that maybe they don't need to have those experiences for whatever reason, or perhaps they're not ready to have the experiences on some level, or it could even be that they want it too much. And sometimes when we want something too much, what actually happens is we create like a barrier that stops it from coming in its natural way. And I have found that certainly with people that want things, when it comes to manifestations, which I guess would be a kind of manifestation if someone wants it, then you have to be very careful about how much you do want it and how much energy you put into the wanting, because the wanting isn't the having, so they're two different things.
Yes, I totally, I can see where you're coming from on that. In your book, The Experiences from the Light, and you have a whole compilation of people sharing some of their experiences. Did you find that there was a common thread, or a few common threads between all of those stories that you compiled?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I ended up dividing the book into sections because there were so many stories that were similar and that fit together. So the book is in, I think it's 12 different sections. And so there were so many people that were talking about the out-of-body experiences. There were a lot that were talking about spiritual awakenings. And they all just grouped together nicely. But so far as the whole compilation itself, if there's a common thread between all of them, I can't really think of any that comes to the top of my head that just runs through all of them. I mean, there were just so many different people, so many diverse backgrounds. We had everybody from a practicing psychic, who obviously would have spiritual experiences, you'd think, to a truck driver, who you would probably assume would not have spiritual experiences or may not even be open to spirituality. So it was very diverse range of people, and that's what I loved about putting the book together. There were a lot of men who contributed chapters, contributed stories, which again did surprise me a little bit, because men have always been known as being very much more closed to the spiritual world, whereas I don't think that's really true, having read a lot of these stories now.
Yeah, that's interesting, because, whenever I teach classes, overwhelmingly, it's women that are attending.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's your kind of target market, of course. The women tend to be more interested in this kind of topic, for sure. But the men are definitely beginning, well, maybe not beginning to, but the men, I think, are definitely awakening to that side of themselves in some way. I'm not sure if it's the whole rise of the feminine, which they talk about on the planet and the energy right now, and that's kind of just naturally awakening that part of a man. But it's very common talking to men now and realizing that a lot of men have had these spiritual experiences and the awakenings, just like we women have.
So how did you actually find, so your first book, The Light, A Book of Wisdom, is a compilation of all these amazing, great teachers that are, Neil Donald Walsh and Don Miguel Ruiz and, these big names that probably everybody listening to the show has heard of. How did you go and approach them with this idea? Did you say, I had these crazy transformational experiences and they told me to write a book about the light and I want you to join me?
You know what? I don't think I even told them that much. All I remember telling them was that I was, guided. I think I used the word guided. I was guided to put together this book to share light with the world and to help people reawaken their divine inner light. And that's really all I said. And, I did mention that it was 100% for charity and a couple of the other facts about it. Like I might have mentioned who else was in it at that point and things like that. But I didn't really need to say too much. And actually, what happened is it would always be when I was in the middle of something else altogether, like a different task, and all of a sudden it would come into my head, oh, you have to email Neil Donald Walsh and ask him to be in the book. And so I would follow that and I'd stop what I was doing and I'd email him. And whenever that happened, I would get a reply within about 20 minutes saying yes. Every single time that happened that way, I would always get a yes within like a very small amount of time.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, my name is Monica and I'm the host of Co-Creating Now. Give yourself an opportunity to connect with your all-knowing higher self and manifest joy, love and peace together every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business.
Know what to do, just can't figure out how to fit it all into your busy life? It doesn't have to be that way. Hi, I'm Ellen Baisberg from Seamless Life. Join me every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio and learn the how of conscious living. Let me and my guests help make your life seamless.
The future of internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
All right, we are back and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque. If you are just joining us, my guest again today is Keidi Keating, and we are talking about opening up to these spiritual awakenings. And in your book, The Light, you have three, it's kind of broken up into three different sections: preparation, practices, and experience the subtle world. Do you think that we need to prepare ourselves to have these experiences? And if so, what are the kind of things that we need to be putting our attention towards?
Well, I don't think it's necessary to definitely have to prepare ourselves, because some people do have very sudden spiritual awakenings. However, I think that can be kind of a bit of a shock to the system, unless the body and the mind and the spiritual side has all been prepared first. So definitely it's not necessary. But some of the ways where we can actually prepare ourselves are, just the things that are actually in that section of the book. Some of those are good ways, like, for example, the Feng Shui chapter. That's a way of actually preparing our home, which is our environment, which does affect us. So that's definitely one way. And then there's things like yoga as well, like in the Kundalini yoga chapter in the book. That's a way of preparing the body, and also just making sure that we eat right, because so many of us tend to eat junk foods. Even when we think we eat healthily, we can always improve on the way that we eat and what we choose to put into our bodies, so that we're actually have a higher, the foods that have a higher vibration, such as superfoods. Obviously, if we take them into our body, we're also going to vibrate at a higher frequency, which then starts attracting these higher level experiences to us. So there's just some of the ways in which we can prepare ourselves. Meditation is another way, although that might also fall under the practices, because they're more things that you might do on a daily basis. But definitely those first few things I shared, they will really help to for the groundwork.
Yes, I love the chapter on the feng shui, because we're actually going to be moving here pretty quick. And so I'm starting to become very mindful of how we're going to set up our home and really think about the flow and creating that energy. And I think, like you said, having that space around you that does allow for higher vibration activity. So I like that.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
You have a section on experience the subtle world. What do you mean by that?
Well, that is basically, connecting with our soul is really the essence of what it's saying. Because when we connect from that place to that place, really that's where the magic and the miracles show up, because we're connected to that very high vibration, which is essentially a part of, the God energy. And when you actually operate from that place, everything just flows spectacularly. But the subtle energy experiences also include, the conversations with angels, the manifesting miracles, the seeing spirit, if that's what you may want to do, and actually realizing who your guides are and connecting with them, and all of those much more what you would say was on the other side of the veil kind of things that go on. Because obviously if we're very connected with our soul, then we're also going to be very connected to the other side, because that's where the soul lives. So, not in figuratively speaking, I mean, it's not like there's an actual place necessarily like that, but it's a different vibration than what we're on here in this physical world of Earth.
Yes. So before the break, I said I wanted to touch on something that I really connected with, and it was the chapter written by Neil Donald Walsh, and he talks about, the way to experience the light in yourself is to see the light in everyone else and appreciate that they are these beautiful, luminous light beings. And as you start to see everybody in that light, then that really helps you connect with the light in yourself. And I just thought that was such a beautiful message.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite too. So that's interesting that we've both picked up on the same message that we liked the most from the book. But,
and that, because we can, and we're going to talk about practices that we can do in the next segment, but that was, I don't know, there was something inside me that kind of just clicked as because so often we go through experiences in our life, and, maybe people have done something that we think is, something wrong against us, and we feel resentment or jealousy. And then that's interesting how that is just, it mirrors back to you. And so when you start to see that everybody is doing the best they can with what they have, and that they are this light being, to me, that just all of a sudden I was like, whoa, that connects.
It's very profound. Yeah. And it's definitely something I've learned as I've been going through this awakening process. It's one of the lessons which has been more difficult to learn. But now, definitely there's a lot of people around, especially I've noticed as you do start to open up more to your light, you also have to deal more with the dark, or you might not have to deal more with it, but it becomes more clear. The negativity stands out more, and it kind of affects you more as well. The more sensitive you become, the more full of light, the more the darkness kind of can affect you on some level. So, when you see somebody you might think, oh, okay, they're being a bit dark or a bit negative right now. I found it really helps to remember that they're also the same divine energy that you are and that we are, and so then it makes it kind of easier to deal with it, because that they're just going through their issues just like everybody goes through their issues, and you can come then from a place of compassion rather than any other place.
Was there another chapter or lesson in the book that you really resonated with?
Yeah, there was actually. There was a chapter on forgiveness, and I'd always kind of thought I got forgiveness and what it was, but it wasn't until I read her section where she spoke about how if we don't forgive the people that we think have done wrong things to us, then it's like carrying around a heavy sack full of potatoes on our back. It's us that suffer if we do not forgive. We're the ones that carry the load, and the potatoes end up going bad after a while, and so you're then carrying a sack of rotten stench around with you, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it's so true. I mean, we're the ones, like, if we forgive those who we believe may have done wrong to us, again, that's a bit judgmental, but I mean, because I've also learned since then that forgiveness is also about forgiving ourselves for judging that there was anything to be forgiven in the first place. Because who said that was right or that was wrong, or whatever. So anyway, that I just really loved that bit about the sack of potatoes and carrying that around, and realizing that if we forgive, then we're able to take that load off our back, and we can then walk free.
I like it. One of the really cool things about this book, and you just touched on it very briefly, but I think it's worth mentioning, is that you are donating all the proceeds from the sales of these books to charity. And why did you feel that you wanted to do that?
Well, I didn't want to be honest. I have to be totally honest, because no, what happened is when I received the message initially from Spirit, that's another part of what the message said. It said that I had to put together this book, but it must be 100% for charity. And that was really difficult for me to get my head around, because I was like, well, hang on, this is going to take a lot of my time, and how am I ever, I need to support myself, I still need to live and everything like that. But, everything obviously worked out perfectly. But at the time, I decided to make it 50% for charity because I just didn't really listen properly to the message. But the only thing that happened there was that the book didn't happen. It just wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't moving forward at all. It was almost like Spirit completely stopped their communication with me on the book until I changed my mind and realized that I had to do it as they said, not how I wanted. So I changed it back to 100%. And it feels amazing to be able to give that, because I've realized that this isn't really me. I mean, it's not really me doing this. This has been Spirit 100% all the way, and all the contributors that have given of their time. It's just a whole giving, it's just all giving. It's all about giving. And so that's also what, I'm happy to do too.
And how did you decide on the 7 charities?
Well, actually, some of the contributors helped me because I asked for their advice about what kind of charities that they supported, and which ones they believed were the most genuine, where the profit or the money that they get is actually spent on what they say it's spent on. Because I know that there can be some charities which spend money in a bit of a perhaps irresponsible way. So I had to do homework on them and make sure that they were genuine charities. So that was actually fairly easy to come up with the list of 7.
How has your life changed since you started putting these books together?
Oh, it's just completely transformed. I always liken it to the way that a butterfly, like a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. Well, it starts as a tadpole, I think, doesn't it? Or is that something else? I can't actually remember. But, from a caterpillar to a butterfly, it goes through this whole metamorphosis. And, so that's basically how my life, I've moved countries. I've got married since then. I've had books published since then. I've done, speaking events. I've my whole life, it's just completely, everything about it has changed. I don't think there's anything the same as what was the same before.
That's amazing. And it's so interesting, hearing that message that you need to give 100% of the sales of that book to charity, and your resistance. And then all of a sudden you go with it, and it just opens up this divine flow. Was there other, you talk in your bio about number combinations and synchronicities and white butterflies. How are you feeling when all of those little nudges from Spirit were showing up and just kind of saying, yep, you're on the right path?
It was just one miracle after another. That's what it felt like. Like every day was and is. I mean, it continues to be so. It's like just living in bliss, because it's almost, when you're just in that flow, everything just feels right. Everything is right. But I do think that the little daily practices I do definitely help with that flow and that connection to our higher self and to the light. So, those things I'll definitely be sharing with you. But as in the way everything's gone and all the number combinations were really interesting, because I just started seeing the numbers 333 and 33 everywhere. I mean, they would literally be everywhere I went. And the interesting thing was that I was 33 that year as well. So I don't know if it was anything to do with that, but it was definitely something peculiar going on.
Well, I love it. And great segue, because when we get back, we're going to be doing our Bite-Sized Brilliance segment, and we're going to be talking about some of those practices that you did daily and that our listeners can do daily to kind of up their vibration and connect more with spirit. So you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on OMTimes Radio. We'll be right back.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Join Elliot Jolish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jolish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers. Live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jolish Hour. The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
All right, we are back here on Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque in my favorite segment of the show called Bite Size Brilliance, which is brought to you by Hestia Health, specializing in mind, body, weight loss, awareness development, and intuitive lifestyle counseling. So if you'd like to learn more, you can go to hestiahealth.com, where we create calm minds, open hearts, and inspired lives. So I love this part of the show because as we've talked about all this amazing stuff, now we're going to talk about some of the real life tip, tools, and techniques that my listeners can start doing today. So I know that you said that there's several practices that you, Keidi, would do on a regular basis to help you stay connected with spirit. So tell us a little bit about those.
Okay, well, my favorite one of all actually is to love everyone. And that sounds really simple, but I mean to actually kind of feel that on a daily basis, and to actually send love to other people in your world. You know, it might be people that you already, that are already like in your family or friends, people that you already know very well. Or it might even just be strangers that you might come across as you're walking to work or as you're on the bus. I often do it when I'm in a busy supermarket and I see that the cashier is very stressed. So I'll do it to people like that who I can see are under some kind of pressure. And I'll then just like go inside and I'll visualize a pink white light or a golden white light going from my heart to their heart. And so I actually feel the feeling of sending that person love. And I actually do it sometimes you can use your imagination with it. Sometimes I actually see a parcel of love being sent to them, and it lands in their heart chakra and opens, and the love kind of flies out in like little butterflies. It really doesn't matter how you do it. It's the intention of it that works. We're all energy, and we all pick up that energy, even though some people might not look to be aware of it. That is affecting them on some level. So it's a really nice thing to do. And of course, there's that whole thing of what we give out, we get back. So essentially, the more we send love to others, the more love comes back at us.
Yes, I do.
Nice.
Yes, it's a good return on your investment. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something I practice too. I don't really enjoy running on treadmills, but sometimes when it's not very nice weather and I can't walk or hike outside, I imagine instead of watching TV while I run, I do the exact same thing. I imagine opening up my heart and sending love to everybody running next to me on their treadmills. And then I send it to everybody in the room. And then I send it to everybody on the floor and then the building. And I just imagine, I'm like, well, if I'm going to run on a treadmill, I might as well spend time, sending love to my
Sending
fellow man.
love.
Yeah.
That's so lovely. I think that's amazing that you do that. And then like the whole building becomes awash with love
Yes, I like
all
it.
around.
So what's another daily practice that you do to stay connected?
Well, this is one that most people have probably heard of already, who are kind of into this sort of thing. But basically, the expressing gratitude. Now, I do have a gratitude journal that I write every day before I go to bed, and I write down 5 things that I've been grateful for in the day. However, after a while of doing that, I realized that I wasn't really feeling the gratitude much. I was basically just kind of wanting to get down those 5 things, but there was no real feeling behind it. I realized it was just words, and they felt kind of empty. So then I realized that it was much more powerful to actually do the gratitude in the moment of feeling the gratitude. So when the amazing thing happened in the day that I was grateful for, I would then go inside and spend a bit of time in the feeling of gratitude, because then I realized how much more potent that was. And, just to be able to sort of like say thank you to the universe in the moment like that. And then I would still write the things down later as well, just to kind of reinforce the gratitude. So that's something that I do every single day as well. And I've learned to do it throughout the day.
I think that's a good, because then it just, that's a good piece of advice, because I understand what you're saying. If you wait till the end of the day and then you just write it down, it's a completely different experience than being in the moment and, moving into your heart and being grateful. So I like that. So give us another one.
Okay. Well, this isn't a daily activity, although I'm working on it being a daily activity. But basically, just to give more to others, but not so much to give of your possessions, like to give of your money or to give of your things, maybe old things. That's nice too, but to really just give of yourself. Now, that's to me always very different when you give of yourself, and it comes from the heart like that as well. It's not like, oh, I meant to give something because if I give, I get back. So I'm going to like give this charity X amount of money and maybe then I'll get something back. Like that's just not the right way to do giving. It really does have to come from the heart. And, for example, it might be that you really care about old people and you don't like the fact that they're stuck in these homes and they don't really get to talk to anyone and they're lonely. So you might just decide to give of your time and give of your love and to go there to an old people's home and spend some time with some of these old people, and that makes much more of a difference to their lives than if you were to give them an old an old sweater of yours or something like that. That really you can't beat the giving of yourself.
So as I'm listening to these three practices, two things are popping up. Obviously, the first thing that I mentioned, it's the experience, right? Again, the difference between just writing a check and putting it in the mailbox versus going down to an assisted living facility and spending time. So so that's a really big thing, is the experience. And also, as I'm listening to this, those are three very high vibrational acts, right? Gratitude, love.
Yeah.
And being in service of another. And so to me, that just makes perfect sense, that doing things that expand your light, raise your vibration, makes it as there's a smaller disconnect between the vibration of spirit and where you are living
on Earth.
in your daily life.
That's exactly it. And then that's when the miracles and the magic, you just can't help to see it everywhere you go. The little miracles that happen, and just the way that the right person will come into your life at the right time, the amount of opportunities that open up when you're in this flow and in this vibration. It's just the way it should be. Like if you imagine, like they say, like an acorn growing into a tree and not really having to do anything to do that. All it has to do is to be. It doesn't have to do anything. Well, that's really how our lives should be, but we all get very caught up in the doing aspect, thinking that that's what's going to get us any results, but it doesn't really work like that, and it's not supposed to be so difficult.
So are there more books coming in this series?
Yeah, there are more books. In fact, The Light, a Book of Wisdom is part one in a 3-part series. Experiences from the Light is a standalone book, which I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing more of those ones or not. So right now I'm working on the second book in the Light series, which is called The Light, a Book of Knowing. And that one also has 22 contributors, different ones mainly to the first one. And then there'll also be The Light, a Book of Truth, which is the third book in the 3-part series.
I apologize that I've been talking. I thought they were book 1 and book 2. I apologize
That's
for
all
that.
right. No, a lot of people make that mistake, and I think it's because the covers look very similar. But I think that was just a bit of a confusing thing that we decided to do, and perhaps shouldn't have done.
Well, it's all about the light, and they are both of them are very beautiful colors that you just connect with. And I noticed the butterfly, and does that just speak to what you were talking about earlier, the metamorphosis or the transformation?
Well, it was more than that actually, because when I was because I actually self-published the book initially, and I was trying to come up with a book cover design. I wanted to give the designer a good enough kind of brief so that they would then come up with, they know what they were doing a little bit. And I just couldn't think of anything to put on the cover apart from like a big ray of light or something. So I connected inside and I asked for some help, with that. And then one morning I woke up and there was a whole swarm of white butterflies flying around in my awareness. It was very strange, but I realized as I woke up that, okay, that's what Spirit's telling me to put on the book. And it made complete sense to me. I mean, this was, white butterfly represents freedom. It represents, it represents transformation. The fact it's a white butterfly to me represents spirituality and light. So all of it together, it just made total sense to me. And from then on, I started seeing white butterflies everywhere. Wherever I went, I'd see white butterflies. They would just come in the most strange of places. It was very weird. They continued to this day. Like whenever I feel like I'm not completely on course, or if I'm thinking about something I'd like to do and not sure whether to go for it, if I see a white butterfly in that moment, I know that it's something I have to do.
Awesome. Well, we only have just a couple minutes left. I want to give you the opportunity to let my listeners know where they can find your books and any websites and anything social media.
Okay, so yeah, anybody can find the books on Amazon.com, all the usual websites, and they're also in all the Barnes and Noble stores in the US. So they can go in there and actually just pick one up and buy it. My website is KeidiKeating.com, which is KEIDI and then KEATING. So if anyone has any questions or need any advice with anything, then I always get back to emails. So you're more than welcome to send me any messages.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for being on the program this morning. It was delightful to have you on, and it was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you as well. It's so nice to cyber meet you like this.
Well, that's how more and more people are meeting these days. So
exactly, yeah.
Well, coming up next, you can continue with the good vibes. You can listen to OMTimes music to feel inspired and elevated. So that is coming up next. And next week, as I mentioned, we have Patty Fivette, and we are going to be talking about the makings of a modern mystic and how to use tools such as automatic writing and journaling to connect to spirit. So that should be a great show. And I have so many great people lined up starting the first week of April, and just some really, really awesome people. So look forward to that. If you need to get a hold of me at any time during the week, you can email me at angela@hestiahealth.com. You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health and Entanglement Radio. And you can hear this show live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. So yes, I'm just so excited to be here. And like I said, if you haven't checked out the other amazing hosts, you absolutely should. There's some good stuff going on all over OMTimes Radio. So this is Angela Levesque wishing you love and light. I will see you next week.